Hey everyone, it's Kevin, the Paracordist, doing a quick video to share with you some information on one of my favorite topics, that is firecraft. I want to talk to you about flint and steel fire starting with amazing tinder that you can make yourself, known as char cloth, as well as some cool products I have related to this topic on my website, from carbon steel blade MoraKnives to the Sugar Creek coffin striker. I want to talk about the tinders and the differences between striking sparks from a ferro rod or fire steel, some people call it a flint incorrectly, and a true striker and flint fire starting method. This is a ferro rod, ferrocerium rod. It's made with a collection of rare earth metals, and it functions in such a way that when struck, not struck, but scraped with a sharp edge, generates sparks. Those sparks can be thrown into certain kinds of tinder and create a fire very, very easily. If it's wet, you can just wipe it with your fingers and it will still work. The sparks will still go in the wind. It's really one of the greatest, most reliable fire starting methods that you can use, but it takes some skill to understand how to properly strike it and what to strike the sparks into to actually get a fire. As I mentioned, people will call a ferro rod a flint. And it isn't flint. Flint is actually a stone. Okay, flint or any sharp, hard stone is an integral part in a flint and steel fire. Flint and steel. Here's a traditional steel striker. It has a high carbon content, and what happens is, when struck with against the sharp edge of a flint stone or another kind of stone, a small chip of steel is broken off of the striker, and the iron content causes it to turn into a spark as it hits the air. So the flint is actually not sparking. It's the material that's struck from the steel striker. So in this kind of method, it's struck like that on the edge, and then that small spark must be caught in a very good sort of tinder, otherwise it will just quickly extinguish itself. So herein lies the differences between the flint and steel striker and the ferrocerium rod. Now, with a tinder like that which is created from jute fiber, this is jute cord, a natural cord you can get at a hardware store in a big roll for nothing. Once that cord is unraveled, it can be fluffed up into sort of a very light, fluffy, airy nest like this. A perfect little tinder bundle. Now, this kind of tinder is extremely easy to start by showering it with sparks from a ferro rod, and I can show you that in a second. Quite a bigger challenge to try to drop a spark from a flint and steel striker to get a fire. It's an amazing combination. A couple reasons. One, when compared to a ferro rod method, ferro rod will, over time, wear down to nothing. Flint and steel striker system really could last a lifetime of making fires. So indefinite number of fires that you can create. Char cloth is a renewable resource. You can make it as you need it. So you'll never have to run out of char cloth. And I'll do a video on showing how to make perfect char cloth later. But another, excuse me, another thing that's really amazing about the char cloth is that the harder you blow on it, or the more windy it is, the hotter it gets. And it's going to be very easy with a char cloth to ignite something like this. But where it really comes in amazing is if we'll do this. We'll take some shavings off of this, something much more coarse, something that's very difficult to light directly with a shower of sparks. We'll find it very easy to ignite into flame with the char cloth. And I think that's a huge, huge advantage. Striking or scraping a ferro rod to get sparks obviously requires a sharp edge. Now, you would never use the cutting edge of your knife because that would certainly dull your blade very, very quickly. A designated scraper like this, designed for the purpose of scraping a ferro rod, is certainly a great option. You could also use the back or the spine of a knife if it's been designed to scrape a ferro rod. In this case, the MoraKniv. This is a Mora number 2 with a carbon steel blade. The back is designed square and great for striking a ferro rod. So if you're carrying a good knife like this, you don't necessarily need to carry a scraper just for the sake of scraping, and you won't dull your blade. Obviously, the steel striker here is limited in that it has no sharp edges. It's not able to strike a ferro rod. Its sole purpose is to strike against a flint to get a spark. If you do have a knife with a square back like I did, like I have here, then you can very easily strike a shower of sparks into the tinder. And get flame. Again, that's how well and how quickly jute fiber goes up with a shower of sparks from a ferro rod. Now, if I was to take the same fiber pile and try to strike sparks into it from my flint and steel striker, I believe I'd be here all day without much luck. That's where the charred cloth comes in, as a tinder that is perfectly designed to work with a flint and steel striker system. Alright, the basics of flint and steel use. Step over here. Now we'll grab my striker, my flint, and now I need a piece of charred cloth. Keep some handy in here. Extra piece of flint as well. Charred cloth is made from any all-natural cotton fiber. I like to make it from blue jeans. I think that makes an excellent charred cloth. So I'm going to take a piece here. What I'm going to do to maximize my chances of catching a spark on the cloth is wrap the cloth around the edge of the flint. And I'm going to strike it with my striker, which will send sparks in some cases up, some cases down, as the edge is hit. By wrapping the charred cloth around the edge, yes, it will shred, but it's also very likely, it happens often quite quickly, that a spark lands on the charred cloth. Now, another option that you can do that I find much more difficult is you can place your tinder box down on the ground, and you can hold your striker in one hand, your flint in the other, and you can try to aim some sparks into the box. And I actually caught one, as you can see. See that red dot right there? That's how amazing char cloth is. That's essentially charcoal, and the harder I blow on it, the harder it gets. Same with wind outside. It's almost impossible to extinguish unless you take out, deprive it of oxygen. So you got a piece of char cloth running like this. You put it inside your tinder bundle, and it gets hot. Alright, I'm sorry. I'm right near the fireplace here. So this thing is going to blow up into smoke and flame very quickly. Just give it a little blow. And there you go. Now what I was saying was, that's easy. Okay, we were able to do that with the fire steel basically instantly. So it seems like the char cloth is a little bit of a slower method. But as I mentioned, when you have coarser material, you can blow that coal that's in the char cloth to a red hot level and ignite pretty much anything that would otherwise have been difficult to ignite with a shower of sparks here. So I'm going to do it again. This time, rather than aim the sparks into the tinder, into the char cloth, I'm going to do it all in my hand, show you that method. But then, in advance of that, I'm going to prepare a more coarse tinder and show you that example. Okay, now, preparing a more coarse tinder. I'm going to use my MoraKniv, which I now sell on Paracordist.com, as well as a fat wood stick, which I also sell for survival and fire kits. This could be any kind of wood. Okay, so I'm going to make some shavings that are relatively coarse from my example here. It is possible to take a stick, whether it's fat wood or any other stick, and scrape it with the back of, or the spine of a knife like the Mora, and actually create fine enough tinder that you can light it with a shower of sparks. But my intention here is to show you how the char cloth can light something that is even too coarse for the average person to light with a shower of Ferro Rod sparks. So give me a second here to fill this plate up with some shavings. Okay, so here's my shavings. Some very coarse shavings. Now when you see some videos occasionally on the internet of people trying to learn to use a fire steel, you'll often see the problem that they have when using natural materials and not man-made tinder is that the pile of shavings which they're attempting to light is just simply too coarse, and they'll sit here with a fire steel and shoot shower after shower after shower of sparks into it and not get a fire, and they wonder why. Well, there are methodologies that would to light something very coarse like this. Primarily a controlled strike, where you put this down in the middle, you press very hard, and you force the sparks right into the pile, sometimes accumulating some unlit material which contains some magnesium, which then, when hit with a spark, will help light like one of those magnesium sticks. And yes, you can light something like this. But my point in doing this demonstration is showing you how easy charred cloth can light something like this compared to struggling with showers of Ferro Rod sparks. Now, instead of using the striker that I just demonstrated with my flint, I'm going to introduce a product that we sell exclusively at Paracordist.com. It's called the Sugar Creek Coffin Striker. You see, it's coffin shaped. It takes the place of the old-fashioned fashioned shaped striker. Okay, so this is a striker. It's made of a very hard steel with a high carbon content, and it has extremely square and sharp square edges. The reason it has that is because it also doubles as an amazing scraper for a ferro rod. So in addition to being the coffin striker, in addition to being the steel of a flint and steel system, it can also be used as your primary scraper for a ferro rod. Very good ferro rod scraper. Big sparks, strong, hot, robust sparks. Gives you a good grip as well. But as I said, this is a striker for flint and steel method. So what I'm going to do is this time take a piece of the charred cloth, wrap it around the edge, wrap it over the edge. I'm going to swap it for a bigger piece here. One thing you'll learn is use a fairly good sized piece if you're trying to light some tinder that's not very fine and fluffy. All right, so I'm going to wrap this over the edge like that. I'm going to hold the striker in my hand firmly, and I'm going to strike down and try to just nick the edge of the flint. Okay, in hopes that I will catch one of the sparks either on the top or on the bottom here. Here we go. Not yet. Not yet. There it is. See it? Okay. Now you take it off like that. You can take your char cloth, bunch it up a little bit. I'm going to place it underneath this material. Get as much of the material as I can on top of it without smothering it, because it does need air. Okay, now I can pick it up and start blowing into the char cloth. And there it is. Okay, lastly, let me talk about the knife. Okay, majority of knives, or at least a large portion of the knives that are available out there, like people might carry a Swiss Army knife, as I do here in my pocket every day, are made from stainless steel. Stainless steel is resistant to corrosion. And that's, primarily why people use it rather than a carbon steel knife. A carbon steel knife requires some occasional oiling and some care when it's been wet to dry, keep it dry. But advantage of the carbon steel blade is that it can strike sparks off of a flint or a sharp rock. Now, you saw me use the back to strike a ferro rod, but what I'm talking about is by striking the steel of the knife, the back of the knife itself, with a flint, I can create a spark exactly as I did with the edge of the Sugar Creek coffin striker. All right. So one option for kit, great fire making kit as part of your survival gear or backpack, is to have a Sugar Creek coffin striker and a ferro rod, along with some char cloth, and you can pretty much make a fire in any conditions. But another important thing to have with you is a knife. If you have a knife with a carbon steel blade, as the Mora knives that I sell on Paracordist.com now, you can actually get sparks off the back of the blade. So you can do it the way that I showed you first. Set up your char cloth on the ground and try to strike sparks off the back of the knife into it. Or you could do as, of course, yes, you're going to nick up the back of your knife. This is something you would do in an emergency. Another method is to hold the knife like this, shown in Cody Lundin's book, and strike the way I did with the striker. Now I don't trust that method because I don't want my fingers that close to the blade. So I have successfully held the handle like this and struck it against the flint with the char cloth on the edge. It's a little bit more difficult to do, but it certainly is possible. Okay, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and see if I can get a piece of char cloth started with this the back of my MoraKniv. Right? This could take longer than obviously than it took me before, but let's see if I can do it. Got it. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Beat up the knife a little bit, but if that's all I had, now I got my char cloth lit. Throw it in some Tinder. Have myself a fire. Quick second. Well, thanks for watching. Again, mostly paracord stuff I do, but the outdoors is one of my passions, and outdoor skills such as this, I think everyone should know.